Meanwhile, Ontario is striking deals with its provincial neighbours. Premier Doug Ford signed memorandums of understanding with 3 provinces yesterday, all designed to cut through trade regulations. The CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick has more from the Ontario legislature.
Ontario has now signed 6 MOUs with other provinces. In recent weeks, they've signed agreements with Manitoba, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, and yesterday signing MOUs with Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Prince Edward Island. Now, these are not legally binding agreements. They set out a series of commitments that the leaders of these provinces are making with each other, priorities for them to work on in order to knock down internal trade barriers. And there's a couple of key things in these MOUs. One has to do with essentially harmonizing regulations to make it easier for goods and services and people to move across the country. And this has to do with reciprocal regulations, for example. Doug Ford citing as an example yesterday in his news conference with Premier Scott Moe that if a doctor is qualified to practice in Saskatchewan, they should be qualified to practice in Ontario and vice versa. And another key area that they say they will work on has to do with trading within the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. That agreement that has existed for a couple years does have some carve-outs built into it, some exceptions that the provinces can trigger to that trade agreement. Ontario has already said it won't apply any exceptions to that free trade agreement, and they want other provinces to follow their lead. So these MOUs say those other provinces will, quote, work towards not applying those exceptions to that trade deal. And another key area in these MOUs is to do with the sale of alcohol between provinces and territories. And those who have signed the MOUs saying that they will work on bilateral frameworks for direct-to-consumer alcohol sales, and they want to work towards a pan-Canadian framework for direct-to-consumer alcohol sales. Now, these internal trade barriers have long been an issue between provinces and territories, but there's a new sense of urgency to knocking these down because of the trade war with the United States. Premier Doug Ford saying again today that he feels that President Donald Trump is attacking Canada and Canada needs to fight back.
You know, I just have to make sure we remind the country we're still under attack by Donald Trump. He wants to destroy every single business, bring every single business down to the U.S. But a message to President Trump, that's not going to happen under our watch. When I say our watch, the Prime Minister and all the premiers, we stand united, and we're going to make real positive changes.
Now, at the meeting today with his counterparts, Premier Ford quite likely will be talking to the other leaders about signing MOUs with Ontario. He's hoping more will be signed. And meanwhile, Ontario is enacting legislation to help implement some of the things in these MOUs. There's a piece of legislation called the Protect Ontario Through Free Trade Within Canada Act. And it's in its final stages of debate here at the legislature. That bill will help implement some of the commitments in these MOUs. And Ontario also committing money to businesses in this province to help them access markets outside of Ontario once some of these measures are implemented. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Toronto.